Teresa Haley Huff. I'm Chair of Services to Youth for the Chicago, Illinois chapter of the Lynx. And on behalf of the committee and the chapter, we really want to welcome you and thank you for coming out this morning in this difficult weather. So thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. After a very difficult week and some very well-known deaths, I can't think of a more fitting and truly discussion about mental wellness. We have a wonderful afternoon planned for everyone. We have 4 dynamic speakers and panelists who will give you some insights and some very frank discussions. And again, I really want to say thank you on behalf of the chapter for coming out and enjoying the afternoon. I'm going to turn it over to our president, Ms. Teresa Dunbar-Garrett.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, you can do better than that. You're here already. Come on. Good morning. Good morning. I want to welcome you on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Chicago Chapter Charities Foundation and the members of the Chicago, Illinois chapter of the Lynx Incorporated. I welcome you here today and I say thank you for your attendance. The National Trends and Services Committee and the Services to Youth Committee has taken to a new level our speaker series. This is our way of giving back to the community, and by providing hands-on, thoughtful, relevant, and actionable information to our community, and especially today to our young people on mental health and wellness. This year, our program, Almost Grownish, is a wonderful foray to extend this vital information to our community and to our young people, our future leaders and scholars who will take this information back to their community. Today is an opportunity for everyone, especially our young people, to leave here with more tools than we have in our toolbox. And so I just want to say today that we are very grateful. We are very grateful for you and for this information to get out to the community at large. We know that those of you here in attendance today will take back all of this information on mental health and wellness, and you will spread it to your high schools, to your colleges as you foray into that area, and as you begin to go into the workplace. So on behalf of all of our members, we thank you so much, and to the committee, to Services to Youth, and to National Trends, and to all of our members, I say thank you for being courageous, for taking on this topic of mental health and wellness, and for helping us as people of color to eradicate the stigma in our communities and in our families around mental illness, mental health, and being mentally strong as a nation and as a Chicagoland community. So thank you and enjoy your day. I want to introduce to you our moderator for this afternoon, and then we're going to get going with the printed program as follows. It brings me great joy and pleasure to bring forward to you our moderator for today, my sister, and a true hands-on person in the community. Risa R. Davis has spent her professional career building relationships and partnerships for the good of local communities and corporations. Professionally, she has served as she's currently the Vice President of Business Development for the United Way of Metro Chicago, and she joined that organization 5 years ago. With a background in financial services, Risa previously served as Senior Vice President Commercial Lending for Citibank. And while running local philanthropy at Citibank, she helped and created strategic community partnerships which are still in place today and serve our local community. Committed to her community, Risa serves on several boards. Among them is the board of Fifth City Preschool, the Housing Authority of Oak Park, Illinois, and the Small Business Grant Community of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Risa is the recipient of numerous awards, including the Chicago Defenders Woman of Excellence Award and an award from the Boys and Girls Club for exemplary service. Personally, she has earned her BA in Economics from Northwestern University, Kellogg Graduate School of Management. And what I'd like for you to know about her is she is a proud mother of 2 adult young men. She lives in Oak Park, Illinois, but she serves the Chicagoland community with pride, with diligence, with dignity. And when I tell you she is committed and focused to making sure that the lives of people who look like us and sound like us are better, she not only gives her time, her talent, but she gives her money, and we know that that means a lot. It is my privilege to bring to you our sister in service, a member of the Chicago chapter of the Links Incorporated, and your moderator today, the awesome, awesome Risa R. Davis. Risa?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. The sun is trying to come out. We appreciate you coming out despite perhaps a few little sprinkles this morning. I am not Micah Mateer, our Link sister Micah. As you have figured out by now. She had a family emergency that came up, but the most important thing is that she's okay. And so, with that, I hope you'll bear with me. I hope that you will understand that sometimes things just come up, and in links and in life, we pitch in for each other when we need to, right? All right. So thank you. So welcome to Almost Grownish. We're here to talk about what you want to talk about. We can talk about blaming it on the alcohol and what that means. We can talk about consent and when does no mean yes, and how the guys navigate that, how the girls navigate that. We can talk about what happens when you get a little homesick. And you say, is this because I'm just homesick? Or is it because I don't really want to be here? And how do I figure that out? And how do I convey what I'm feeling? And not scare my parents necessarily, because it might just be a mood. But I need their help. And I want to listen to them too, because they're adjusting also, because you're gone. Even if you're still living at home, your whole day-to-day is different. And they're adjusting too. And they're praying that you're all right. And they're anxious to hear from you. And they want to know that everything's okay. We know that as it relates to college life, other things come up that maybe aren't as big an issue in your high school life, like money. Can I ask for more? Can I keep this job and keep my grades? Can I spend it on what I need to look like everybody else on this campus? Hello. Some of us know what that's like. And so this is your forum. We're going to make sure we leave plenty of time for you to ask questions, but my role is to get us going. So I'm going to do that. We have an awesome, awesome panel, and I'm actually going to read their bios because I don't want to miss this awesome information about these 4 folks. Okay? All right, great, thank you. And panelists, after I've introduced you, if you would please come on up and take a seat. We'd appreciate it. First up, Dr. Henry Perkins is Senior Staff Psychologist at CAS. Counseling and Psychological Services, the Student Mental Health Services at Northwestern University. Go Cats! With CAS, Dr. Perkins is the coordinator of the Stress Management Clinic. His interests are in mental health issues affecting people of color. He has expertise in providing psychotherapy services to individuals and couples. He is an expert in health psychology, and he has been a proponent of mindfulness-based stress reduction before mindfulness became a buzzword, as it is currently. Dr. Perkins also specializes in treating anxiety disorders, adjustment disorders, and depression. Please welcome Dr. Perkins. Dr. Candace Norcott is an assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of Chicago in the, I know I should have brought my iPad, section for family planning and contraceptive research in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Dr. Norcott's work focuses on providing gender-responsive and trauma-informed behavioral health consultation and interventions to women and adolescent girls. Dr. Norcott is also a facilitator for Voices, a program on empowerment and self-discovery for adolescent girls. Dr. Norcott, who is also an expert in substance use disorders, helped develop A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps, which is a training DVD. In addition to her work with girls, Dr. Norcott also focuses on adolescent boys and helping boys learn how to seek consent. Please welcome Dr. Norcott. Now, our students. Avery Sappho is a junior at Amherst College in Massachusetts and is the first African-American student athlete to be voted captain of the football team in his junior year. Avery is a member of Amherst Leads, a leadership development program at the school. He's majoring in psychology. Please welcome Avery. Taylor Thompson is a rising junior at Barnard College at Columbia University in New York. Taylor is the author of Leadership, It's Child's Play, 10 Steps to Children's Leadership Development. And she is the founder of the Taylor Wilson Thompson Family Foundation. Each year, Taylor runs a Big Problems, Big Ideas competition. The winner of this year's competition submitted their big problem as Hispanic students' mental health challenges, submitting a number of big ideas to help solve the problem. As a result, they were awarded $4,000 to sustain leadership in this area. Please welcome Taylor. All right, so with that, oh, please have a seat, please have a seat. Okay, now I'm told I'm in a rolling chair in the middle, so let's see. Oh, okay, it's not gonna roll, all right. But I'm in the back so I can see everybody. Okay, so thank you all again. And to get this conversation started, I'm gonna turn to our students first and ask you to just describe the environment at the schools you go to. And Taylor, why don't I start with you?
Hi, so I go to Barnard College at Columbia University. Columbia University has 4 undergrad colleges. They have a general studies, engineering college, liberal arts college, and a women's college. And I go to the women's college at Columbia University because it was formed prior to them letting women in until '89. Cool. And it's a nice space because it's quite small, and that's something that I genuinely wanted when I was looking at colleges. But you have access to a larger university and a larger research university. There's about 500 to 600 people in graduating classes at Barnard, so you have a space where like everyone knows you, and your professors kind of know your name, and the classes are rather small, even lecture classes. I think that facilitates a very like intimate learning environment, which is something I knew going into college that I wanted, and that's definitely something that I would consider as a high schooler, if that's something that you're thinking about, like understanding whether or not you want like a larger school or a really small, intimate environment, and making sure it's versatile if you want that.
And Taylor, when you're at school, is it really clear that you're in New York City? I was mentioning to you that when I was there last, you come up the subway and you're boom, you're on campus.
Yeah, it's very much in the middle of New York, or rather it's quite far north. We're in Harlem, gentrified Harlem. And it's a quieter space in New York, and there are a lot of different universities that are options. If you go further down, you have NYU, and that's very much in the heat of it. Harlem is like a much quieter space, which I really appreciate, but it is no less New York.
It's still New York.
Manhattan's Manhattan, yeah.
Yes, with everything that comes with that. Wonderful, thank you. Avery.
So Amherst College is kind of different from Barnard. We're... Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Speaking to it. We're in western Massachusetts, so about 2 hours west of Boston. There's only 1,800 kids that go to Amherst, so it's definitely a lot smaller. We're in a college town, though, so there's 5 schools around us: UMass, Holyoke, Smith College, and Hampshire, and Amherst. You can take classes at any of the 5 schools. But with Amherst being so small, you kind of get the same thing as Barnard, with small classes, very intimate, intimate connection with the professors. You get to interact with a lot of different students. As I said, you can take classes at any of the other schools. If a smaller school you think is for you, definitely the interaction you get with professors, things like that, is definitely an advantage of mine.
Okay, well, let's stay with you for a second, Avery. What did you talk about as it relates to college, particularly in those last couple of years of high school, as you were thinking about where you might go? What did you talk about?
Definitely the school that would give me the best athletic and academic advantage. The school that would have a good Black experience for me. Amherst is about 55 people of color, 55% people of color. That includes all other races other than white. And the Black experience at Amherst is kind of different because a lot of the Black people there come from African descent. So even though we are very diverse, the Black experience is very different. So we talked about race with my mom. We talked about sex, obviously. Talked about managing your time, being an athlete and student. And we talked about just making smart decisions that would help you later on in life.
Wonderful. Taylor, how about you?
Yeah, I was talking to my parents about it this morning, and I felt like it was just you asked about what we talked about in the last 2 years of my high school experience leading up to college, but I think there was just like a very long curriculum over my life about how to conduct myself in college, about how to know the direction I was going, and to kind of keep my eye on the prize kind of idea, and a lot of like figuring out how to ground myself and in my home, and like that was a very large conversation I think over my entire life, and then there was of course the conversations like the summer of like choose the bed first, like get there before everybody else, choose the bed, and like, the little stuff that is important, legit guys, like come early, choose your bed. But I think, yeah, we had conversations about mental health, about sex, about alcohol, and there are opinions that your family is going to have about that. It's something that you need to figure out in your own body as well. If your parents can talk to you about how they conducted themselves and how they believe, is right. There are definitely like very clear black and whites about what's right and wrong, but I think it's also really important to like kind of look within with a lot of those things about a lot of the choices that you're going to make. So I think it's like both.
Thank you. And to our professionals here, I'm going off script already. Taylor says, you got to look within and figure out, your parents have told you this and that and the other, and then you go to school, and maybe that first summer you come home, the way you thought about some issues has changed. Perhaps you've had some experiences that you had not had, and we can get real here if we want to, about what I'm talking about. But as a parent, how do you process that we talked about these things before they left, they come back home, and I'm seeing some differences? Maybe it's growth. How does a parent think about that?
Yeah, kick it over to Nancy. So, when you're talking to, one of the things that you said as well was a long curriculum over your life about how to conduct yourself, right? And I really like that. This idea that it's not one 4-hour conversation that you have the week before you're going to college, right? It's, there's this woman, Rosalind Wiseman, that talks about 3 ideas in 3 minutes, okay? And so this idea that you, at little parts over your child's life and over maybe, even if it's just the 2 years, you're talking to your kids about the decisions that they're going to face and the experiences that might happen. And so you can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but what you can do is you can get a sense of how your kids are making decisions. So the conversations that you have with them are, well, let's talk about this case, let's read this report that just came out, and let's read this story, and then asking them without any judgment, like, what do you think it was like to be the girl? What do you think it was like to be the guy? And having conversations and getting a sense for how they're thinking and making decisions. Because that's what you can have influence over. You know, you can't say, well, you know, I want you to do this when you get to college, and then they come back and say, well, I've done the opposite, and then that's wrong. It's more, well, all right, make decisions with the tools that we talked about. What happened, what went wrong, what went right, what would you do differently? And so that's really why we're here today, is we're here about how do we maintain these topics and these conversations in a way so that if your child comes back with experiences that are either exciting or maybe devastating to hear as a parent, how can you continue to talk to them about how to manage that and absorb and adapt to that with their life?
I love it. The tool, you're given the tools, now go out there and use them to navigate. Thank you, Dr. Norcott. Dr. Perkins.
I think part of the challenge for parents is not to get freaked out. Because you will be challenged. And being able to sit with your own feelings in such a way that you continue to make the relationship a safe place for your son or daughter to unpack aspects of their journey. And unfortunately, there is no way to avoid the trial and error kind of learning that takes place between 17 and 26. Can't wrap them up in bubble wrap. People have to go out and we definitely, and I'm recalling this from my own sort of adolescence, I don't care what people tell you, you have to experience things on your own. And it is the case that from the standpoint, I'm a sort of a brain-informed, as you are a therapist, it is the case that young folks between the ages of the college years, actually the brain is still under development. The sort of executive, parts of the brain haven't quite congealed, so to speak.
Are you saying that kids do stupid stuff? Is that
is exactly what I'm saying. There is a desire for novelty, for thrills, for excitement, and that sometimes requires a mix of things that you get better at over time in handling, but people have to sort of find out on their own. So my advice to parents is to do what I teach my students, my clients. Breathe. Just breathe through it. Take a moment. Because your capacity to remain a safe space for your son or daughter is very important. They are going to say stuff that's going to freak you out, but you need to be an anchor for them. You need to maintain the lines of communication.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
So I do a lot of work with trauma, and one of the features of trauma is that your coping capacity and your coping skills are overwhelmed by what's happened to you. And as Dr. Perkins was saying, things are going to happen to your kids. And for you to be able to have given them coping tools and also be able to stay present enough to share yours with them can buffer and support them through the experiences that could otherwise be traumatic, right? Because things happen over the course of our lives. And something can happen to Dr. Perkins and he can adapt to it, and the same thing can happen to me and it can be a trauma for me. And some of what we know about that is the differences are our support system, our coping, the skills we have. And so part of, in addition to breathing, it's also being able to share that, that support and having a space where they can come back and process and unpack things with you.
Thank you. On this notion of communication, both of you are miles and miles away from home in school. And so I just wondered, how often do you communicate with your parents? How much do you tell them? How do you think that through? I know as a parent, when I'm able to get my son, my older one especially, on the phone, how's your money? How's your love life? Did you eat today? On and on. So how do you communicate? What do you share? What might you not share? Or maybe you think maybe it's a face-to-face conversation, those sorts of things. And Adrian, we'll let you go first.
All right, so in the first semester, I was not good with communication. So my mom implemented something where I had to call her every Sunday, just give her general updates. And that was football, school, grades, social life, everything. And we have a good relationship, so I don't feel like I need to hide anything really. There's obviously some things that you just won't tell your parents that happen in college. That's just gonna happen. But this year,
such as.
This year I definitely contact her more. It's less of a I need to call her every Sunday. It's more of like a help each other out. If I need to talk about something, if she has a question for me. So that's the extent of our communication.
Yeah, I feel like I have a similar trajectory. My freshman year, I definitely could have called more. I would read my receipts, my tax receipts to my mom, and she'd just be texting me, telling me things, telling me she loved me, and just nothing. It'd just be long. And that was on me. I understand that. But similarly, this year, it wasn't. I think it was just so much easier. I wanted to talk to my parents all the time, both because I've been getting older and I had a job and I had so many questions about how do I fill out all these forms? What's a social security number? What? Things like that. Just needing guidance and being very, very willing and open with asking my parents questions and knowing that they had my back, knowing that there was a community to refer to that I could ground myself in. So I definitely feel sophomore year was much more of we had a lot more communication, I think. And there were no complaints on my parents' end about how often I was calling. So I was finally really engaging.
Wonderful, wonderful. So a question to you all, for the students, I'm wondering when it comes to finances at school, how do you manage? How have you and your parents kind of planned that out? And perhaps it has not applied to you personally, but do you have friends at school where you can see the toll that maybe money is taking on them? And what does that look like? Again, if not for you, for anyone you know in school. And then for our doctors, how does going to school is expensive. And parents may feel like, I've done everything I can, I'm investing all of this. Does that cause additional stress in a family when a child is in school? How does the finance piece impact the home life in some way, in some cases, even when they're gone, they're already in school, but you know, there's other siblings, there's a family there that has to carry on. And I'll let whoever start.
Well, I'll start. And I'll start with by saying that thank God that while my kids were in school, there was no such thing as quick pay. Because that easy, instant access to money could really wreck a budget. And I think planning, being as proactive as possible. And I think it's a good life lesson to think in terms of budgets. And, you know, do you want me to put money in your account at a certain point? Do you want a lump sum so that you can manage it yourself? So I think families need to experiment with what works best for them. I'm not sure if there's a one-size-fits-all model. But it's an important kind of life lesson. And again, as with a lot of other things, it will probably proceed in a trial and error way. Some things you start out with that might not work so well until you finally get it right.
We may or may not know, or maybe the families, there are families on a spectrum that go to college. And, you know, I was just listening to a podcast the other day. I start all my sentences that way. But they talk about how, you know, especially for Black communities, when we think about college, we think about like Hillman, and maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, this idea of like this. But for a lot of college students, the college experience is now having food co-ops and food pantries at college, right? So you're sending your children to college and they're really struggling with how to pay for food, right? College students that are homeless, right? So they're in college, getting a college degree, and they're homeless. That's especially trying, right? We know that 75% of mental health problems happen before age 24. And when we think about the things that layer on in terms of stress, finances, your basic needs, right? And so being really realistic in having those conversations about like what's going to happen in college. You probably are going to have to get a job, but what kind of job is going to work with your academics, right? Because at times people want to work really challenging shifts and also go to college. You can do that for a month maybe, but then you're not going to get any sleep. You're going to want to do things that other college students are going to do. So, you know, scope out what are the employment opportunities at the school, right? What is your max amount of money that you're really going to be able to have? And budgeting is not my favorite thing to do. And I know that's one of the hardest conversations to have, but really getting your Excel spreadsheet, your graph paper, whatever you want to do, and talk about what this is going to cost financially. Because if you just kind of head out and cross your fingers and say, well, work it out, it can be one of the things that, you know, you've gone to school, you've made the investment in your tuition, and then you have to leave. Right, like that's devastating on a family or an individual's debt. So really being thoughtful over the course of an entire semester about how your money is going to work. But so I guess my main thought is that college for a lot of people looks different with money, and we really have to, I think, honor that and not be embarrassed if that's us or if that's a family member or a friend, to be able to talk really brass tacks about like, I don't have a place to stay, but I'm going to stay in college. Can you help me? Right? Do you know of any resources? Right? That's a reality for a lot of families.
Thank you. And for our students, money.
Biggest thing that I would say is everybody get a job the summer before you go into your freshman year. I had a job before going into my freshman year, and I didn't really worry about finances while I was in school because I had that money saved up for the year. And then the summer after that, I worked 2 jobs. So getting jobs in the summer is going to be a lot easier because you're not going to have the academic side as well. Also, if you do need a job on campus, look at jobs like in the library, because a lot of it's like sitting down. You can do homework while you're working. It's an easy way to balance work and school. And examples of people who I actually have a friend who buys Starbucks like every morning. That's the number one way that you won't have money
To go broke, right?
Exactly. Buying Starbucks, buying unnecessary things. Again, being real, you're gonna want to go out, so you should allot money for that. But just having a plan with your money and not diverting from that is the best way to make sure that you're on top of what you need to be doing.
Well, that was great, yeah. When I entered my freshman year, I had an allowance from my parents, which was like a very fortunate position, but it's not common. And I was able to like maintain that. There's a lot of apps that you can like download to help. Like that's what I do to help maintain like a budget because it's really difficult for me as well. And that was a great idea. Definitely get a job during the summer before. Like that's a perfect time to stock up because I worked this semester about 10 to 15 hours a week, and it was really difficult. I worked downtown, so I had to commute from like really far north in Manhattan, and it was hard. I did way too many extracurriculars and tried to have a full load, and I was exhausted all of the time, to be quite honest. And I think utilizing your school's career services is a really great idea for finding accessible jobs. Your school will have one no matter where you go. And it's like a perfect place, like they have to sit down with you. It's not, I mean, I doubt they will charge you. Barnard does not have that much money, so they would charge us if they could. Yeah, it's a really great service that I don't think a lot of people take up. Like I don't know a lot of people at my school who've gone to them, but I've run them so many times. They will help you with your resume, they will help you with, they'll do mock interviews with you. It's a really great accessible space that your college or university will have, and I highly recommend that as like a resource.
Wonderful. So Taylor, what's the best thing about college? And if you've had any sort of challenge, if you're willing to share, generally, what did it feel like and how did you work through it?
I think my favorite part of college is, I have two. One's the nerdy version, and it's like I really love my classes. Genuinely, like I found what I love to study, and that was it. Like, I love the professors, I want to be best friends with them.
What do you study?
So I study economics and social history. And I don't enjoy my econ classes that much. I was actually referring to my women's studies classes because they're amazing. And they actually really cool into what I study in economics. Absolutely, fully. Taking women's studies classes is it's the reason why I'm an econ major in the first place. And so one of my favorite things is just how much access I have to knowledge and to having conversations with my professors. They have office hours and I can, go talk to them about whatever I'm interested in, even if it's outside of the class, So it's really fun, actually. If you find what you love, you can really thrive. And otherwise, I really like living in the dorms. I genuinely do. I live in an apartment this semester. Barnard owns different apartment buildings in Harlem. And I got to live with 3 of my best friends. 2 of them I went to high school and middle school with. And it's just a blast. I don't know, it's really fun to be able to spend that much time with my best friends. And I wake up and they're there, and I come home from school and they're there. And we had a family together. It was so beautiful, building a home together and having a little living room, and we'd have dinner together. It's like a really lovely space to grow, but also have a village that's still willing to support you. And that's one of my favorite things, because they're young and it's fun, but also there's so much support between the 4 or 5 of us, and it's great.
And any challenge?
The challenge I definitely think was, adjustment. My freshman year was really difficult because I was adjusting to being alone. I went obviously to school with 2 of my best middle school and high school friends, which was a good buffer. But I was really lonely and I was afraid all the time. New York was really scary. It was really dirty all the time. And Chicago's really clean, you guys. You don't even know. We have alleys. With our trash. New York was just so dirty and scary and loud, and I felt so alone. I didn't know how to get anywhere. And I suffered from a lot of anxiety over it. I was having panic attacks, and I didn't know what they were at the time, and so I thought I was just dying. It was just because I volunteered by everyone, I didn't know, and so it was really difficult for that reason. But having, like I said, that support network, and also being able to capitalize on my school's, health facilities and being directed so abruptly to them and like knowing exactly where they were. I lived in a dorm right above the health facility, and it was really nice to like know that they had my back at that time.
Excellent.
Can I piggyback?
I was actually going to come to you before we go to Avery. Panic attacks, stress, versus I just don't know how to get around. I haven't learned how to navigate the city yet. How do you tell the difference? How do you tell the students that you're helping, it's not this, it's that, and it's okay?
You mentioned two very important components to wellness. Having been blessed with having friends there, social support, having at least one person or a small group of folks available to offer either informational support in terms of how to navigate whatever space you may be occupying, or emotional support is so important in buffering a relationship between stress and having problems. And you alluded earlier to two people could have the same experience, so to speak, but react very differently. And that's because of connections to folks who can support them, who can provide perspective, and that's very important. And the second piece was access and a willingness to access resources. You were above the counseling center. That's great. So many of us have difficulty with accessing those resources and in kind of overcoming stigma. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit more later. But being able to recognize earlier in the sort of thought stream things that aren't right, not sleeping well or feeling agitated or nervous. Those are signs that you should really pay attention to, and don't kind of sit with it for too long before accessing help.
Risa, you have a question back here?
Okay. Is there a mic?
Your mic is wireless, and apparently you can
I can
move around out of that.
I can just talk. I can just talk. You're fine. You're fine. I just wanted to say something real quick to give you all some perspective. I'm just finishing my first year at school, and a lot of what I've heard in like the most recent question about kind of stress, anxiety, panic attacks, whatever, I'd like to say that's extremely real. It's very prevalent. It's something that everybody, not everybody, most people go through, I would say. But in high school, it wasn't something acknowledged, talked about, discussed, etc. So the biggest thing I figured out is when I got to college and I was going through like stressful or especially tough times, trying times, I would find that I kind of hold up. I felt like that was me. I felt that was part of my transition to college. You know, that was part of the adjustment. And when you just sit on it too long, it messes with your head. It distracts you from work. It changes your lifestyle. You don't work out as much, like et cetera, et cetera. So what I figured out is, since it is actually something that a ton of people are going through, it's something you've got to open up about. I found a lot of my friends actually going through the exact same thing, some of them since high school, and they don't really talk about, like nobody vocalizes it, but I found out in my last month of school, I think 20 of some of my really, really actually close friends all are like, have expressed feeling the same way I felt sometimes. And that was just something I didn't imagine, I didn't think about, because usually when we're together, when you're with some of your best friends, you're having a good time, you're not really thinking about the time you spend away from them. So I'd say it's something you definitely need to open up about, and I liked what you guys had to say about that too. That's it pretty much. So less of a question, just wanted to tag.
I couldn't really say it any better than that. What I would add to it would be how incredibly powerful it can be when you're looking at colleges to also ask questions about the mental health facilities. How many sessions can your child access? Some schools only offer 8. Some schools offer as many as you need/want. talking to your child about how you can make an appointment if you need one when you're feeling distressed, depressed. It's really hard to take those action steps. So if you've already talked to your kids about how to do that, it can just grease the wheels a little bit. And finally, if you're calling your child all the time, I was talking to one mother, and she said, every time I call my child, they're in bed, like they're sleeping, and no matter what time of the day I'm calling them, they're always in bed. And so little things like that you can just kind of be more curious about. And I think sometimes I wonder if as parents, you hold your breath, and you just hope that they'll make it out. And you don't need to. You can be more active. If you can help create a village, and if there's somebody in the town that your child's going to school, you can say, can you check in on my child? Those kind of things, or plan a trip to go see them if that's within your resources. But yeah, I think sitting and just kind of holding your breath and hoping something doesn't happen. You shouldn't have to manage that.
Thank you. Avery, do you mind if I switch the question now? Is that okay, Clarence? Go ahead.
So the biggest thing for me was freedom. And I think an important thing that my mom, I didn't think so at the time, but my mom let me she gave me certain freedoms in high school. I didn't think that they were freedoms at the time, as I said, but that helped me prepare for being totally alone at school and making the right decisions when nobody's around. And I have a couple friends that were really cooped up in the house with really strict parents. I mentioned to the parents, those kids that are really strict, that you're really strict on, are the ones that do the worst in college when they find on everything.
I'm seeing some books between parents and children.
I know.
So maybe that's some of the things that we can talk about too.
So Avery, the college years are sometimes known as years for experimentation, and that can include substances, alcohol, sex. Describe for us the environment at your school, and just do you feel pressured at times, and how have you worked through that?
So with Amherst being such a small school, if you don't know anybody, if you don't know people, you know their face. So with the party scene, it's more of like, there'll be like 3 parties on campus. Whoever wants to go, we'll go to them. I don't think it's that, with it being so small, there's not that crazy of a party scene. There's definitely alcohol, weed, and everything else that comes with college.
So it comes with now.
But I don't think
Pills, cocaine.
Yeah, that too. I don't think I've ever been pressured. A lot of my friends don't drink, don't smoke, don't do anything. But no, I don't think I've ever been pressured into doing anything. I could see how somebody would if their friends are partaking in these things. Some people say, oh, the party's bad, so you need to be drunk to make it fun. That's not true. That's not true.
Okay. Taylor?
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's any drug that you're necessarily thinking of, it's accessible in college, it just is. But I also would say that there's a space for everyone on campus, at least at Columbia. There's spaces for people who like hard drugs, for spaces who like weed. There are a lot of spaces for people who don't do drugs or drink at all. Like, there are definitely, groups of people and that you can find, that everything's kind of accessible, and it's a matter of like choosing what you're about to do and who your friends are going to be. You can, I mean, the moment you step on campus, it'll be orientation, and those kids are going to be there, and they're all going to kind of know what they're going to do, you know, whether they're ready to rebel or they're ready to do what they did in high school. You know, it's a matter of just like choosing, you know, the group of friends that you're going to be with. I never felt pressured either. You know, most colleges have you do some like online classes before you go to school on substance abuse and consent. And a lot of the substance abuse like videos that I had to watch when I was going to college were like very, like people would be at parties and everybody would be like, no, you have to do this drug, like you can't, you're not cool unless you, like no one's doing that. Like I've literally never seen anyone do that before. It's like more of a subtle coercion kind of thing. It's more of a like, there's kind of gonna be that vibe perhaps, but no one's ever gonna like shove it in your face. And maybe that could happen. Be strong if that does. But yeah, I definitely think it's a choice that you get to make when you go to college.
Thank you.
So I didn't do anything in high school. And as she said, college is definitely a time for experimentation, but I would advise you to, if you are experimenting, do everything in moderation. And research whatever you're doing. Don't just go off what a friend says. Just know what effects it might have on you, short-term or long-term.
I also would say, and this is something I definitely learned more in high school, and I carry this into college. In my high school, there were a lot of drugs. I went to a very white, like progressive school, and there were a lot of drugs actually. And it was something that a lot of the white kids had access to, and they were going to be totally fine if they got caught. They were going to be totally fine if they were doing drugs in public, and that's not something we get to do. Just for reference, it's not for everybody. It's not accessible for everybody. It's not something that people get to like move on with their lives after trying sometimes in this community. So definitely just be conscious of that and make sure that that's like a salient, concept in your mind, because of racism's everywhere, that bias is everywhere, and it's like not something that we have the privilege of exploring sometimes.
Thank you. And Dr. Norcott, in that scenario, your child comes home that first summer, perhaps that second summer, in between years, and you've had a certain view about things that they're not to do. And what does a parent do when you realize that perhaps my child has begun to experiment while they're away, or my child has had sex when we've always talked abstinence? When that light bulb goes off, when that college student comes home and you see that things have changed, what does a parent say? What do they do?
I think a parent listens. I think you just listen. I'm trying to kind of aggregate all of the things that have come in from, especially from what Taylor and Avery were saying. And
we got some parents out here who could elaborate probably.
And specifically with drugs and alcohol, so I work in a gynecology department, and so gynecologists will see a lot of the University of Chicago girls will come, get testing, and then something will just kind of make the doctor feel a little bit like, why don't you just talk to Dr. Norcott? And what will happen is that girls are coming in for testing for sexually transmitted infections because they've had a sexual assault. And Taylor, one of the things you also said in the beginning was like this gray area, like some things are black and white, and sexual assault happens in this gray area. Almost all of the sexual assaults on campus are because alcohol or drugs are involved. So when Avery says moderation, that's a huge key. Moderation, who's your support system, because girls will come in and say, I had this experience, I didn't want it, I don't feel good now, but I was drunk. I don't want to go to the Title IX coordinator, or maybe I have and they treated me really shitty and I didn't appreciate that. So you know, these are conversations that you want to listen to. If your child is coming to you, I worked with a college student, and we were talking, and she was like, oh, I can't tell my parents this. This is not something I can tell my parents. She was going through the process of Title IX, reporting, talking to police, all by herself. And that's terrifying as a parent, to think that your child is navigating that by herself, okay? And we can talk about consent, right, later, but I think when we're talking about alcohol and drug use, just this idea that these sexual assaults happen concurrently with alcohol and the use of drugs, and if you're creating a space for your child, for your daughter to come home and be able to tell you that is so important, without judgment, and just listen. So, took a long road, but I wanted to make sure. Kenise.
Can you say what Title IX is for those of us who may not know immediately?
Sure. So Title IX, as an umbrella, is an amendment, a law. My dad's a judge. He'd be so mad at me. It's a statutory statute. It's a statute that colleges basically have to create equal services for girls as they do for boys. And so what gets wrapped up in Title IX are how colleges deal with sexual assaults. Okay, so there's a coordinator, and there's somebody at every university that manages campus sexual assault. And so there'll be a contact person if you've had an experience of campus sexual assault that you'll have to call. And I want to just take a moment, because talking about sexual assault and rape can be really challenging, especially if you've had experiences in yourself. So if you're in the audience and something that we're going to talk about today just feels a little uncomfortable, check out for a moment, take a deep breath, go get a drink of water, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But it's really important that we do kind of talk about it as well. And if you have any questions afterwards, please come ask. But there is somebody that's responsible. And so when you're that's responsible for taking these calls. But when you're picking a college, you want to know how good that Title IX system is at your college, because they're not all created equally, right? They have to publish all of the data about campus sexual assaults, so that's data you can find and look at. That can be part of a conversation when you're picking a college to start talking to your girls and boys about if this happens to you, how will we deal with it as a family?
Excellent advice. Dr. Perkins, would you like to? Oh, question?
I was also going to add to that the university is required by law to examine any complaint that is considered, that comes under that statute. And they cannot retaliate against you. They cannot do anything to make you as a male or a female feel uncomfortable. If you've been assaulted by a professor, a teaching assistant, a student, someone who's not on campus, who came on campus, you as a student off campus in a restaurant, you have the freedom and the right to submit this claim, and it will be investigated fairly, and know that you have that right as a student on your campus.
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? I can talk about this all day, but a lot of what we know is that LGBTQ students also experience really high rates of sexual assault on campus. And one of the unique aspects of that is that a lot of times their families haven't, well, we know he's gay, but we don't really talk about it. Or we know she's a lesbian, but we don't really talk about it. It is what it is. But because of that, when you go and you experiment in college, you don't know what sex is like for you. So you might do something, or be asked to do something, or be forced to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, right? And so you don't know if that's something to report. Or your partner says, well, I'm gonna out you. I'm gonna tell people that we did this. And so as you're sending your child off to college, being able to be comfortable having conversations about sexuality is protective. Because you don't want them to be fearful if something happens to them about who they can talk to about it or being outed. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you. The notion of consent. What is consent? And I'll go to the doctors. Dr. Perkins?
Well, let me just say this. I don't think there can really be consent without sobriety. And we have a really, the period between, at least at my university, and I think this is probably true for a lot of large universities, the period between August and probably November at Northwestern is really dangerous for young women because there is a high percentage of those young women, freshmen, who are assaulted. And unfortunately, they're assaulted. You know, there's a huge Greek system at Northwestern, and people go to parties, and alcohol is a huge part of that. And it's just unsafe. It's just unsafe. So this is an issue that we are, you know, grappling with. And there's this sort of, you know, wink, wink, look the other way. You know, we have a policy about alcohol, and, you know, there's an age. But it's an open secret that everybody drinks, that freshmen drink, and so we're grappling with that, frankly.
Dr. Norcott, consent?
I've been talking a lot, so I'm just going to, I want to kind of hear what everybody else has to say too, but, you know, I would consider that consent is yes. It's not saying no and paying attention to no. Consent is getting a yes.
So how do you get a yes?
Ask. Everyone's worried about ruining the moment, right? Until you've had a sexual encounter where you've asked for yes and you can move forward. It's really not awkward. You know, I think politically we kind of put it on women and girls to manage whether they're going to be sexually assaulted or not because men don't feel like they need to. But you don't want your sons being in a situation where they're being accused of something, right? And you certainly don't want it happening to your daughters, and so you talk about the yes.
And that requires, to some extent, sort of evolving consent. Is this okay? Is this all right? So that there's a kind of a continual checking in about whether or not something is comfortable.
Can I just say something? And you actually addressed it, but it is important to understand that yes, consent means yes, but you have the right to say no if you feel uncomfortable in the moment of yes. So you addressed it, but I just really think it's important that people understand that, especially for the young men as well. It's a constant checking in for the young women as well. It's a constant checking in. And it's okay if you say no. No is no, even if you say yes.
Students, I'm wondering, is there anything that you really wish your parents had told you about college that you realized after you've been there a while? Or any topic, any item?
Yeah, I think it's not just like something that my parents didn't tell me, but just the general public. There's like this idea that college is the best time of your entire life. And I think it's on the back of these pamphlets. And I wish that someone would have told me I was allowed to be sad. Yes. And I was allowed to be kind of like specifically my freshman year, like I'm not like sophomore year was lit, I'm not gonna lie. But freshman year, I was really sad. And I kept being like, oh my gosh, this is the best time of my entire life. Things are about to go downhill, apparently, and it's pretty bad. So like that was, I just wish someone would have told me, like, when I went to college, I might be sad sometimes, and that's so fine. It's so fine to be sad, and it doesn't mean, you're not doing college right, or things like you need to leave or drop out or move. Like I just wish someone it could be the best time of my life, unclear, but I wish someone would have told me that it could also kind of suck sometimes, and that's fine.
And how did the sadness evidence itself for you?
I said I was lonely, but I really wasn't. I had friends off the bat because my middle school and high school friends, and I made friends in a lot of groups. But I was scared all the time, like I said, and I didn't know where it would come from. I think because I moved to another state without my parents, and I moved a lot as a kid, so it wasn't necessarily about moving, but I think it was about, I didn't have my home. I didn't have a home yet. I was living in a dorm with a public bathroom, and I was scared all the time.
Who are these people?
Yeah, strangers. And I wasn't locking my door ever, which is just a bad idea to lock your door. But I was just scared all the time, and that's why I was so sad. And I didn't know that was a possibility. I just imagined that I was going to step on campus, and I was going to immediately be having the best time of my life. And every night was going to be a party, and my classes were just going to be easy. And college might be the best time of your life, unclear, but you're allowed to not have the best time of your life, just so you know, it's still fine. And you're still gonna have a good time, it's still fun, but it doesn't have to be magic, I guess.
Excellent. And let me go to the doctors and then I'll come back to Avery. When you're talking to a student who perhaps is sad, how do you know that that's what's going on as opposed to a student who is on the beginning end of a serious issue? I think many of us can point to someone we went to college with who basically lost it for a little while, for a longer time, but had some really serious issues. So how do you know, how do you help determine that it's sadness and give it some time and go call home and know that you're connected and then go to class because you're going to be all right?
There is a certain amount of ups and downs that's normal to everybody's life. And so the issue is distinguishing, sort of normal variation in mood and connection to, obviously disappointing things that you're going to see or have a relationship breakup. So what I kind of look for when I'm sitting across from a student, a number of things. The frequency, duration, intensity of issues, the extent that the person's is impaired in terms of their ability to focus, to get out of bed, to go to school, engage in their lives. And the more signs of difficulties, then the more seriously we kind of take it in terms of looking at interventions. And once you come to a conclusion about what might be happening, then there's a plan that you can develop with the student to address it. So a good interview, having a sense of what's normal for the student and the depths to which those down periods go.
Dr. Marcotte?
Well, Dr. Perkins sees, he works in a college counseling, so I would defer to his answer. One of the things that I'm thinking about, though, is having your kids be good citizens and also knowing what to recognize and talking to them, because I'm sure that you have, Avery Taylor, you've seen your college, your fellow students struggling, or I remember when I was in college, there was a girl that threw up all the time, and how would we talk to her about that, or how would we talk to the person that was kind of staffing our RA, right? And what kind of tools you felt like you had when you saw your fellow students struggling, I feel like is also a helpful conversation to have, so I don't know if you've ever seen that since you've been in school.
Excellent. And Avery, any one thing that you want to share?
So I have a friend that actually just took a semester off, and she just has a lot of support from her family. And she wants to go back and evaluate why she's in college, what she wants to do, just things like that. And I think having a support system, friends, and family is just very important in that phase where she's trying to figure out herself and what she wants to accomplish.
And as you think back to your pre-college days, anything that you wish, man, I wish we had talked about this beforehand.
So I went to Mount Carmel, and I don't know about anybody else, but my high school did not prepare me for college. So maybe, I don't know if parents knew that, my mom knew this or not before, but just alerting students that it's going to be a tough transitional phase, and knowing the resources that are at your school that can help you with that. For example, for me, we have a writing center. I made a lot of older friends that were seniors that helped me with papers, with time management, things like that. So just knowing the resources that surround you and how to use them.
Excellent. We want to make sure we have some time for the audience to comment and for questions. So I'm going to ask, and I got you, Michelle, just a second. I'm going to ask the panelists if you could offer up just one piece of advice to the audience about the college experience. What would it be? And we can start either end. Dr. Norcott, yes, sir?
Bystanders, be a good bystander. See college as a community. And I just can't tell you how often that I see girls that have had the experience of being sexually assaulted. And so I want families to talk about how you would have those conversations and how you would absorb an impact like that. Because it doesn't just impact, it might happen to your friend. How do you manage that? It might, if your friend has a crisis, how do you stay on your square, but also be a good citizen to them? So I guess my final thought is have tough conversations about topics related to sex and sexuality.
I would say that building community, being a part of a community, and that could be a club, it could be involvement in some sort of extracurricular activity. The bottom line being isolation is a huge problem at my institution. And it kind of initiates a kind of downward spiral that people begin to live in their own kind of closed off bubble or echo chamber. And so all the things that they worry about, that they don't feel good about, are just compounded with isolation. So avoiding the tendency we sometimes have to avoid when we're not feeling well would be one piece of advice.
Thank you. Avery?
I have two things. One is be yourself. Find what makes you happy. Find community. And spend a lot of time with those people. And two, it says it somewhere in the packet, but you're gonna make a lot of friends. Your first year. Know that not all those friends are gonna stay your friends. I guess I have three. And use the resources around you, meaning students that were born into better positions than you. Use their parents. For real. That's how you're gonna find internships and better yourself later down the road. So.
Leverage is a better word, Avery, not you.
Tell your friends.
It's a good point, though.
I know it's like a buzzword right now, but like self-care, but actually figuring out, before you even leave, the things that soothe you, the things that make you feel rested, whether or not, that's going out and being around people, which is, always important. But also I'm a pretty introverted person, and I know that I need a lot of alone time, and not in an isolating kind of way, but like that's how I recharge. And that was such a difficult thing for me in college because I felt like I was supposed to be out all the time, especially when I was a freshman. I was like, I need to make all my friends, I need to join clubs. But honestly, I just needed to sit by myself sometimes and breathe. And the summer before I went to college, I did a lot of work to figure out like what made me happy and like how to self-soothe sometimes. Making art, like what kind of art was like really easily accessible. I like have like tiny watercolor kits in my dorm all the time, like just things that like can help me slow down and like just take care of myself for a moment, because it's hard in college. It's like, you know, you can't be neutral on a moving train kind of deal, but sometimes just figuring out ways to feel like you're standing still for just a moment is just really important, and it got me through.
Excellent. So now we'd love to hear from you. I think, Michelle, you wanted to ask a question or make a comment?
I just wanted to make a comment. Hi, everybody. So this is where I live. I work with students going to college, and I was Dean of Students at the University of Chicago Law School. So I have dealt with a lot of students in my time. So a couple things that I thought, you guys were awesome, all of you. Thank you. Without saying a couple, reinforcing a couple of points. The first was the permission to be sad point, which is so important both for the parents and the students, right? Because honestly, Taylor, you hit it right on the head. Everybody tells you that you're supposed to be so happy, and parents also think we're all supposed to be happy. This is all supposed to be happy. I just looked on Facebook, and one of my friends sent her daughter off already for the first time of college, and she was talking about how sad it was. And so parents, you have to also prepare yourself for how, I mean, it was like taking my breath away. But when I left my children, each of them, I have two, one who just graduated and the second one, it just felt like, oh my God, like they're leaving, like my arm is leaving. It was awful. And I'm about to send this one, she's prepared for the breakdown. There's a resource for parents, it's called Letting Go. It's a wonderful book, and I recommend it to all of my clients. It's a wonderful book because it helps you kind of manage through that communication process. Your kids are not going to call you freshman year regularly. Those first months, August to November, they are not going to talk to you. They're going to run away from you. That's what's going to happen. And you just need to be prepared for that. You need to know that that's a part of their separating process, and it's okay. And you need a support system. Go talk to other parents who've been through this. You need it. You need somebody to talk to you so you're not driving your child crazy, okay? The other point was about resources that I think is so important. These two wonderful professionals on the stage are examples of resources, but you definitely want to make sure that you look on your Dean of Students page for your university and look for the resources. Have your child do that. Look for resources. Really important. That's it.
Hi, good afternoon once again. Avery and Taylor, just phenomenal, really. Thank you so much for being transparent, for being real and being honest. I think we may have some high school people in the room, and I'm just wondering if the two of you can look back and talk to your high school selves and think about maybe one piece of information that you give yourself, maybe your junior year, sophomore year, or senior year of high school, as we're looking to kind of move this forward into college. But if you could share maybe one thing that you could say to our high school attendees today that you would share with yourself now that you're a little bit grownish. So thank you.
Kind of cliche, but it's always easier to stay on top of your GPA than try to catch up. So just stay on top of your work. Do as much as you can in the early couple months when you're first there. Talk to your professors, go to office hours, make sure they know your name. Use the people around, or leverage the people around you. Like I said earlier, the biggest thing for me was a senior who helped me with literally all my papers my freshman year. And that just helped me learn how professors want you to write. And it's good to learn from somebody who's been through it.
Yeah, I think I have similar advice, just making sure to capitalize on the resources that you have, both in college and high school. It wasn't until, I was an upperclassman in high school that I guess my sophomore year, but that I started like going to my teacher's office hours like a lot. And being like, I hope they don't think it's weird, but I'm showing up like every day. Because employing, like genuinely asking for help is so, like they will, it's their literal job. And just, employing them in that work that you're doing and making them know that you appreciate what they're doing is like it's so easy and it helps you out so much. Making sure to utilize, your deans when you do go to college, even your administration in high school. I definitely spent a lot of time with my administration in high school talking about, especially my senior year, things that I liked, things that I didn't like. Can we make our health classes better? Can we make seniors take health classes? Hopefully your administration will listen. It's a really great resource and they should have your back. Also drink more water. I wish I had, honestly. It's cute.
And based on experience, if you go to office hours, I've had a grade bumped up just because I talked to the president.
I have a quick comment. I graduated from college in 2015, so I'm not super far removed. And Avery and Taylor, I think what you said today has been very on point. Like all of the advice you guys have given has been great, and I think that for those of us who experienced college, that if we had heard it before we got there, we would be better off, than we would have been. So thank you guys for your advice. And I wanted to reiterate something, Avery, that you said about being yourself when you get to school. And I saw, in my experience, and I'm sure other people had similar experiences, but people will get down to college, you're moving to a new place, in a lot of cases with a bunch of people who you don't know and who don't know you. So people will literally reinvent themselves. And so you will have all these people around you and you'll be thinking like, oh my gosh, like this girl, had these crazy experiences, or this guy is rich, or whatever, and it'll have you perhaps feeling a way about yourself or wanting to do things that perhaps aren't in your character or whatever. And it really is important to stay grounded, because in some cases, maybe not all, people are lying, or, to put it a little gently, people are, maybe embellishing or whatever, and you just don't have to worry about that. Comparison is the thief of joy. So be yourself and do what makes you happy the whole time you're in school. Obviously while staying on top of your work, et cetera, but just be yourself, and while you're being yourself, it'll be better for you, and it'll ensure that you have people around you who are genuine as well, and love and like you for who you are and not for who you feel like you need to be or who you're trying to be. And that's a huge, the whole support system aspect of college is huge. And you'll make friends who hopefully will be in your life for the rest of your life. So it is important to be yourself, practice being who you are, as a new adult or whatever. So, thanks.
Hi, I want to thank the panelists. You guys are wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot. This isn't necessarily a question, but I just kind of want to say, just kind of on my own experience, that it's okay to start your high school career kind of late. Because some of us, maybe like your freshman or your sophomore year, you don't get into much stuff. You hear from your parents, get good grades and stuff like that, but you don't join club, you don't join this organization or stuff like that. Or maybe you just didn't know about it. I honestly didn't know what dual enrollment or AP classes were. I'm just now getting into something, and I'm about to be a senior. And that it's okay to, and like they said, comparisons to thief of happiness. Because I see these people around me who are doing so well for themselves, and like their sophomore year, I'm like, damn, why didn't I get into that too? But I had to stop myself and realize that it's okay to start now and do what I can do for myself. For anybody, and I don't know if anybody feels that way, that it's okay and you can start now.
So I wanted to make a comment about to everybody in the room who's even in high school and thinking about going to college, and the panelists. There's a big gap, wealth gap, between African Americans and whites in this country. And a lot of that gap, in my opinion, becomes greater once a kid is in college. And they don't have access and opportunity to internships, and your dad may own a company so that you can get a job in that company. Your parents, friends in that country club can just put you in a job. And so I think it'd be good for either the panelists to share with the students that are about to go to college or that are thinking about going to college, how do you access those resources so that you can start to close that gap? Because so many of us don't know what we want to do when we're in college, and then we pick a major that has a income cap. And so wealth is an important issue that I think we should address, right, as we are trying to progress.
I think as I look back, there were definitely a lot of resources. This is just for getting into college. There are a lot of there are a lot of programs specifically either for low-income families or people of color, just generally, that schools provide for incoming or like applying students. So I did a lot of like fly-out programs just for students of color, and a lot of schools, like schools that are good schools and good spaces, ethical spaces, will pay for you to fly out and sleep over. There are a lot of programs, and I don't have any of them off the cuff. I know Barnard's because I go there. It's called Barnard Bound. It's a really, really great program for students of color who want to come or are low income. There are a lot of programs out there, and it's just like a Google search away. There's so many different scholarships. There's so many different. The money is there, and it's a matter of definitely using your resources that can show you where they are. When you're in college, there, like I said, employment services that are in your colleges should be able to point you towards these scholarships. Like, they are really out there, and it's like I just wish more people knew about them, because it's not even about access at that point. It's an application away, and you guys are all really smart and qualified people. You're here and you want to know about these things, so you're obviously ready, and it's at your fingertips.
Another resource that Amherst College has, we have the Career Center. In the Career Center, we have people in a lot of different fields. You can talk to anybody, and if you want to go pre-med, if you want to be finance, something in health, whatever. There's somebody there that you can talk to, and they keep connecting with alumni who are in those fields. And that's the main way that we get internships at Amherst. Along with that, there's a lot of websites like Career Builder, you can get LinkedIn, a lot of things, job searches that will help you to find jobs and internships while you're in college. But I urge everybody to find something similar to a career center if you have it at your school. Well, most schools will have, so make use of it.
I'll start last. Well, 2 more comments after this question.
Hi everybody, this has been great, and I made her come with me. So, since Avery parent shamed me about being a strict parent, yes I am. Strictness is in the eye of the beholder. I look at it as adaptive parenting while still adhering to my values. However, that being said, like I said, what's done is done. This girl is about to leave. So, I mean, what would you tell a parent, who, some people think are strict, or, that I've bubble wrapped her or something. I don't think so. But I mean, about preparing your child for this shift change. I've already done, it's done. This bun's out of the oven. So now what?
Well, let me say this, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, hopefully. The more crap that you can avoid in life, the more we can put off trauma, disruptive life events, really the better. So you don't have to apologize for having, been an adaptive parent. To provide your daughter, your child with a solid basis where she feels good about herself and has only had to deal with normative ups and downs of a high school, or such a thing exists. The more we can put off really major trauma and stress, the better off we are in terms of being able to bounce back.
Well done.
Yes.
I would say to listen. As she goes out to college, she's going to do whatever. She's going to have her freedom. And listen to what she does, and respect her decisions, obviously. You're still the parent. We're not paying our own bills and all that. So you still have control over her somewhat.
Leveraging.
Right. she's going to do what she does. So I would say, listen and be responsible.
I want to add too that if you as a student or if you have a child that has problems or that something comes up for them that it feels overwhelming in the moment, neither of you did anything wrong, right? If somebody, it's not about that. So see, you can do everything that we've set up here, and there can still be problems, you can still be sad, you can still be overwhelmed. And so really taking away that I did this right, I did that wrong dichotomy, and just listening, moving forward, and collaborating to, being the team that you are. So I just want to
I like to share, I have 4 daughters, and Amherst College, Howard University, Georgetown, and a student in high school. And I wanted to share that academic success, and this is both for the parents and for the students, doesn't necessarily correlate with the success that a lot of students meet or don't meet in their social engagement and their decision making. We think we have smart kids, they're going to make the right decision, and that doesn't necessarily happen. My experience with my daughters has included everything we've talked about today, from alcohol to drugs to sex, and these are smart kids, and they make poor decisions sometimes. So we have to be prepared for all of that. And I did want to share one other thing that was mentioned. I have a daughter that is gay that came out in college. And we have to make room in our lives for those sorts of things that happen along the way. And one of the things that was mentioned, I'll just mention 2 things that really struck me. Something that Taylor said about, in a lot of our institutions, predominantly Black institutions, the consequences of your behavior isn't necessarily going to be the same as the consequences at Amherst College versus Howard or versus Georgetown. So we just have to be aware of that. And another thing that was said that struck me, well, 2 things that Dr. Perkins said was about sobriety and consent. We know that alcohol is going to be there, drugs are going to be there, but consent has to be within the framework of sobriety. That is a critical piece of information that I hope everyone here today, girls and boys, walk away with. And the last thing is the bystander. We have to be great listeners so that when we hear our kids talking about things that are going on, they can be prepared to talk to their kids. I'm an OBGYN doctor, Dr. Norcott as well, and I try to tell my girls about OBGYN stuff so that when they hear their friends talking, they can either send them to me or they're prepared to answer. So we have to encourage our kids to be good bystanders and good listeners.
I'm welcome to this gorgeous young lady. As a former high school principal, the one thing that I say as parents, encourage your kids to do the things that they normally would. don't hold them back from opportunities, because I've had kids who've had the opportunity to go abroad and study abroad, and their parents are like, well, I don't want to let my baby go. They're going to another country. Allow them to have that experience, because it's those experiences that are going to broaden their network, and we have to push them in directions where we didn't have the opportunity to go. So push them, allow them to do that. If they say, I want to go to art school, let them go to art school. If they want to go to design school, let them go to design school. We don't have to be doctors, lawyers, and those things anymore, because their range is so much more different than ours. Allow them to have that space to grow into who they are, because they may be the next Bill Gates. We don't know that, but we have to allow them to grow.
So, my name's Casey, and my question was, so in my major, I plan on majoring in actuarial science. I don't see anyone, they take all these pictures, you have to join like this math fraternity. There's no one that looks like me. There's like 2 black guys and a lot of white girls. There are no black girls who do this. And how do you deal with that when your peer group, the people that you want to hang out with, is so much different from your academic peer group, the people that are doing the same work as you? Like me and my mom kind of had a disagreement because she wants me to stay in the math dorm, and that's where I'm going to stay, but I wanted to stay in the black dorm. And those are those are not the same thing. So how do you deal with that? How do you balance that in that sense?
And just out of curiosity, what school?
Illinois State University.
I'm kind of opposing your mom again right now, but I would say staying in the black dorm will definitely be a way for you to cultivate more relationships with people that look like you. Joining clubs, join BSU. We have a club at Amherst. It's ACTU, African and Caribbean people. Yeah. So join, if you're not going to get it within your major, join other clubs and other groups that will have people that look like you.
No, I completely agree. I think clubs are the key at that point. I'm glad you asked that, because it was something that's been on my mind while I've been up here that I didn't get to talk about. Being a black woman at any college is going to be a different experience than anyone else. Columbia, remembering every day that like my school was not built for me kind of keeps me sane. Like I go to Columbia, which certainly was not built for me, was not built for women, was not built for women of color, and even going to Barnard, which was built for women and femmes. Remembering that like when I face blatant racism, when I face my progressions, remembering that the institution itself was built on the oppression of others is like something that I have to remember constantly. It's a privilege to go there, and it's a privilege to be a part of it and get this education, but also they do not want me there at all. And remembering that, because I feel crazy all the time. I'm an econ major, and it's a similar space. There aren't a lot of women of color. It's mostly men, a lot of international students, a lot of finance bros, and I feel crazy constantly. Because I want to talk about the economic status of people of color. What are we talking about? Like, how can we talk about Flint, Michigan more? And they're like, I promise you, I was in a political foundations to theoretical econ class, and we were talking about environmental econ, which is just thinking about like where we put our money in terms of like, yeah, doesn't matter. But I was like, you guys, like there's things happening in the world already where people are being impacted by environmental change, by climate change. And they were like, no one's being impacted by that at all yet. It's in the future. And I was so floored, and they looked at me like I was crazy when I talked about Flint, Michigan, for example, or I talked about the Dakota Access Pipeline, and nobody knew because it was just a room full of white men. I felt crazy all the time. So you're not crazy. You're gonna feel it sometimes. Like you might all feel that way, and I just want you to know that you're not. Also, crazy might be an ableist word, so maybe not use it. Anyway, so yeah, I just want you guys to know, like, as a black woman and as black femmes, there's just so much love accessible to you on campus, and like find it, seek it. There are spaces. I do slam poetry, and I'm in an a cappella group of a lot of women of color, and like just find those spaces where love is accessible, and remember the love that you deserve. Think about the love that your family has given you, and know that that is the standard. That's what you deserve, 100%. And like, don't let your institution convince you otherwise.
point from this, what I think has been a very powerful conversation. We have a young lady with the mic. We'll let you speak and then we'll conclude. So go ahead.
Okay, so recently I had an experience where a friend was drugged, and I feel as if I dealt with the situation better, but I haven't had an experience like that before. So what are some ways that you think you can deal with, like a person could deal with that, and the effects that it has on the victim and the people dealing with that situation?
So, how to manage as the victim and as well as the friend, sounds like. This is when knowing what your resources on campus are. So I have a couple thoughts. Knowing the resources on campus, if you're feeling like this person's parents or an adult needs to know, I think even though you're emerging adults in college, sometimes an adult needs to know and needs to be part of this. You don't want to disclose something that intimate, but you can also really support somebody to say, we need to bring somebody in on this, right? We need to get somebody that knows how to help and knows how to access help. So if you have a relationship with that person's parents, you can say, she needs you, let's talk about this. Also, sometimes things can happen to us, we brush them off. Something happens to somebody else, they're struggling with it, and it kind of triggers for us things that come up. And so, even if something happened to you a year ago and you're worried about it, or something that similar happens to a friend, it's never too late to access help for yourself as well. Just because you maybe have chosen not to pursue a legal course of action doesn't mean that you can't get or don't deserve support and help to process that. So those are some of my just early thoughts here in that situation. Resources, help, and honor and value your experiences and hers.
And thank you for asking the question. We really hope that each of you has been touched in some way and taken some nugget of information from this conversation. Whether universities want us there or not, we're here, we're coming. That's right. And we want you to know that you are supported in your academic pursuits. There are professionals like these who are available to help you. There are friends like these wonderful students who can be of support as well. And there are caring parents and extended families like those in this room, and organizations like ours, for whom I am very proud of today. So we thank you so very much for coming. Can we get another hand for this fabulous? Our vendors as well, and please stop over at the table before you go. There's also some extra food if you'd like to take a sandwich to go. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of serving in this capacity today, and I'd like to turn this over to our program chair, Arlene.
Lisa, and please, one more time for our subject matter experts. And for our wonderful moderator, who did such a As Lisa said, my name is Ardina Clinton. I'm the program chair for the Chicago, Illinois chapter of the Links. I think the one word that sums up what we've all talked about is communication. Non-judgmental communication, and I don't mean texting. We mean non-judgmental listening, as Dr. Norcott said first, and talking. I hope you appreciate the fact of the amount of research and planning and volunteerism that went into this. And we want to give credit where credit is due. I'd like the following people to stand and remain standing. Certainly Kenise Herring. by 2 facets of our chapter, National Trends and Services. Will all of the members of that facet please stand? As well as services to you, please. This is the group. Now, one of the things that I do want to say is there's a saying, and that saying is, school is a building that has 4 walls with tomorrow inside. To the students, you are our tomorrow. To the parents and guardians, you honor us, you honor our organization today with your presence. Thank you for allowing the Chicago, Illinois chapter of Links Incorporated to inform and to serve you.